Hi, my name is Trinity. I'm 26 years old and I was born and raised in Scientology. Early December of 2019, at 22 years old, I blew from staff at the Church of Scientology, Tampa. By mid-2021, I began to publicly renounce the Church of Scientology. In April of, I believe it was 2022, I posted a YouTube video titled Scientology Ask Me Anything. According to my family members still in Scientology, this video got me declared a suppressive person. And my family in Scientology don't talk to me anymore. I've tried to make this video like 4 different times, and I just find myself constantly rambling on, I guess. I get too emotional when I delete it. And I don't even know why, because it's not like I had some huge, dramatic, fucked up story within Scientology. Still having to face consequences for speaking out against Scientology. And it's not easy, I will say that. So my grandparents got into Scientology in the late 70s, early 80s. My mom and her siblings were all raised in Scientology. My grandparents were on and off staff. They were in the Sea Org at one point. Obviously, they got out. My mom was on and off staff. Her older brother was on and off staff. My mom's youngest sister really didn't do Scientology. She just kind of went along with it. She grew up and had her own family, and they've always lived like states away from the rest of us, so they were kind of like detached from Scientology. Me and my siblings and my uncle's children were all raised in Scientology. It's from my understanding that my family has always gone through phases where they'll be like all in Scientology, then something will happen and they'll still be Scientologists, but they won't be like on lines, they won't be in comm, they won't be actively doing services at the church, but they'll still like read their books, listen to their lectures, and base their lives off the principles of Scientology. My grandparents and my uncle moved to Memphis, Tennessee in the late 90s, and my mom came, I believe, in 1998 with my older brother and I, and they were all on lines at the Memphis mission before it got decreased down to a Dianetic Center, and I believe the Dianetic Center got moved to Germantown. And until I was 11 years old, we, as a family, spent a lot of time at the Memphis mission. I did the Way to Happiness course. I attended Dianetic seminars, which I hated. I have always hated auditing. I've always hated Dianetics auditing. I learned from a young age how easy it is to just say what they want to hear to make them think that you are no longer affected by the like story that you're recounting. I hated it. As a kid, we used to get in trouble and have to fold promo for the church and go hand it out. I spent a lot of time at flea markets with my mom, watching my little brothers while my mom was demonstrating the e-meter and pushing Dianetics books and trying to just sell Dianetics. When my little brothers became I have 3 little brothers, when they became too much of a handful to take to the church and to take to the flea markets, I probably started a lot more when I was like 10 or 11, started getting left home with them a lot, and I basically became their caretaker because my mom was on staff and she was, I believe, Foundation Org, so she was there 7 days a week. My older brother dropped out of school in middle school, started getting in trouble. He had to join staff too, and that's just what our life was. At some point or another, around the age of 12, my mom had left staff because I wanted to go to my friend's birthday party, and this was after the Memphis mission was decreased down to a Dianetic Center. And my mom was like the only staff member, and she had told the ED that she needed to take a night off so I could go to a birthday party, and the ED pretty much told her that I would be fine, that I didn't have to go, and I was like 12 and I needed to just get over it. And my mom was kind of like, fuck you, and rounded off staff, and I'm assuming she rounded off correctly because she never got declared. After that, my family as a whole, like my grandparents, my uncle, we all just kind of quit going to church. And I was like 10 or 11, or I'm sorry, 11 or 12. We still were we were Scientologists. We went to the Ideal Org opening in Nashville. We still had all of our basics. If we would get in trouble, we'd have to read the conditions out of the ethics books, write our OWs. They regged the new basics package. We had like so many basic book and lecture packages like all over our fucking house. We all lived together, like my uncle, his family, my mom, my siblings, my grandparents, and my grandpa used to listen to like Ron's lectures and different things. So from the time I was 11, 12-ish up until I was 21, we were Scientologists, but we weren't like online Scientologists. There were people from Scientology would still reach out to the family. We'd still talk to them. Like I said, we went to like the Ideal Org opening in Nashville. My parents, my mom and her ex-husband almost joined staff. That fell through, but they were almost worked at the Nashville org. And we just kind of like were raised, like OW write-ups. Something bad happens to you. What'd you do to pull that in? What's okay about that? Stop being a victim. Mental health was not a priority in my family. I was cutting myself when I was like 13. I was super stressed and I was cutting myself, and instead of like getting a hug or getting real help, I just got screamed at by my uncle and my grandma. I had a mental breakdown at school in 7th grade, and I went to see the counselor, and I like begged them not to tell my family I was seeing them, because if one thing about Scientology, they're not too keen on psychiatrists, therapists, counselors. But I was having a mental fucking breakdown, and I went to see them, and I just like freaked out, and there was a pep rally, and the counselor was like, okay, you're gonna stay in here and calm down. And then she went to the pep rally and she locked the door, and then they forgot about me, and I missed my bus home, and her daughter, who was a teacher there, had to give me a ride home, and I had to come up with this big excuse that I got in like a whole lot of trouble when I was in detention, and a teacher gave me a ride home. Traditional education is also not valued in a Scientologist family. I'm the only person in my family to have graduated, like walked the stage and completed all 13 years of high school. I graduated high school. 2 of my little brothers obtained their GED, and one of my cousins got their GED, and then my aunt, who is my mom's little sister, got her GED, I think in her 30s. Other than that, no high school diploma, no GED. I just want to say really quick that my mom's little sister, my aunt, all of 4 of her kids and her 2 stepchildren did get their high school diplomas, but like I said, they lived states away, and my aunt had always kind of kept herself detached from Scientology. It wasn't really her thing. She don't hate it or anything, but she valued education because it wasn't something that was really offered or encouraged by her parents to her and my mom and my uncle. But my Aunt Crystal 100% made sure all 4 of her children and her 2 stepsons completed high school. They all walked. They all got their high school diplomas, as well as she got her GED. And I don't think she gets enough credit for that. And I am so fucking proud of her, because that is such a huge accomplishment within our family, that all of her children finished high school. Anytime I, had mentioned maybe going to college or furthering my education, it was kind of met with like, oh, why do you need to go to school? Because it's just not valued in a Scientologist household. Uncle had a friend when he was a teenager that I guess he was in the Sea Org with. It was his best friend. They both got out of the Sea Org, and they lost contact over the years. When I was 21, all of my family, including my uncle, my grandfather, were living in Jacksonville, Florida. And my uncle's best friend from the Sea Org found him on Facebook, reached out to him, and was just kind of like, hey, I just went clear at Tampa. And she was just telling him all these great things about how everyone's going clear and how upstat the church is, and how there's just like this big thriving community of Scientologists in Tampa and in the Clearwater area. So my uncle and his wife and my mom and my stepdad all went to visit. My uncle decided that he wanted to move his family to Tampa to be closer to the church and get back on lines. 11 till about 21, we were Scientologists, but we weren't on lines. So my uncle and his whole family moved. And then shortly after, my brother, his ex-wife, and his daughter moved, and me and my husband and our daughter moved. My husband was never a Scientologist, I didn't even really talk to him about Scientology up until this point, because like we were Scientologists, but it was just kind of like we weren't really on lines, we weren't really doing anything with it. We just knew not to like talk shit about Scientology. But he moved with us because I wanted to follow my family, because I was super codependent on like my brother at the time. So we all moved. My brother's ex-wife also was a Scientologist. So we get there, my mom, my uncle, his wife, a couple of my cousins had all just done the purification rundown, and we're on their SRD, the survival rundown. Me and my husband get there, and him and one of my little brothers start our purification rundown. After we finish the purif, we get recruited to join staff. And when we joined staff, it was on the agreement that we would always have childcare, because at the time there was a nanny down in the nursery for our daughter, and that we would always get paid a livable wage. And at the time, the church was booming. Their GI was always upstat. So at this time, we were on foundation staff. We were getting paid between $500 to $800 a week a piece. My husband was a CF clerk, and I was a new public letter registrar. And our stats were up every single week. We eventually got regged for our clear packages. I think they were $30,000 a piece. And what happened was the registrar had gotten one of the course soups to take a $60,000 line of credit out and give it to the church. He got it out from his name and gave it to the church and put it on our books. And we signed a piece of paper saying that we agreed to pay this dude $300 a month to pay back the $60,000 line of credit that he took. Fine. But what we weren't told is that after 6 months and interest and everything started kicking in, that would turn into $600. And when I had brought this up to the registrar, he said, you're making a lot of money, you can make it go right. And we were making it go right at first. However, in like February of 2019, God, 1 week the last time the GI was like super upstat, it was like $272,000. And I guess that's like the highest it had been for a week at the org. And this was Tampa org. It's an ideal org. It's right by Flag. And then the next week it was downstat, and then it was downstat, and then it was downstat, and our paychecks went from being $500 to $800 a piece, because their pay was weird, because I don't even understand how we were paid, but we got paid by like units. I don't know. I've never been too clear on how that works, but when the GI started decreasing, everybody's pay started decreasing. And by this point, the nannies had quit, so I didn't have childcare, so I was having to bring my daughter to the org with me every day, and I would get bitched at because she'd be in my office. So at this point, I didn't have childcare. And then, so the first agreement I made out. And then we started only getting paid a couple $100 a week a piece. So the livable wage thing was obviously out. It was obviously out. And we got like our tax money, and so we were still like, fighting the good fight. We were like, we're gonna tough it out, it's gonna be better. Our heads were filled with all of this like false positivity that things were gonna get better. What I didn't know was that what was happening is much like what happened with us. They would get somebody to falsely put on credit card applications their income, and they would get approved for these fat ass lines of credit, and then they would give all of this money to the church, and they would put it on somebody else's books, and the person would just kind of write on a piece of paper, I agree to pay Joe Blow back X amount a month to pay off the credit cards that he got for me. Is basically how it was done. Well, what would end up happening, because these people that were like basically borrowing this money from the people taking the credit out, were like middle class, lower middle class, and couldn't afford to pay the payments once interest and everything started kicking in. So the original person who got the credit, were not getting money back to make the payments, and then they also weren't really making that much money, so they also couldn't afford to pay their living expenses and pay this fucking massive credit card. So then they would come to the church and be like, hey, this is breaking fucking agreements, and the church would start to get at the person whose books the money went on, and they're like, dude, like, there's nothing we can do, we don't have any money. And as hard as they tried to avoid it, they eventually started having to cut the original creditors' checks to pay off this debt that they got from their bank. And I know of one woman who was owed, like, took out $40,000, gave it to the church underneath somebody else's name for the church, and that person couldn't afford to pay her back, and they cut her a fucking check. And I don't think she got declared. I don't know why. I don't think a lot of the people who were getting their debts paid back were declared, because they weren't, like, suing the church. They weren't asking for a refund. It was, I don't really understand why a lot of these people weren't declared. But anyways, the church started having to cut a lot of checks for people. And they were told that they were no longer able to reg people, like, couldn't do that anymore. And because Scientology doesn't really have any new members coming in, and a lot of people in Scientology are fucking broke, like your basic average Scientologists are pretty broke, they could no longer squeeze dry its members, so its GI rapidly started decreasing. So when I moved to Tampa, I had never had credit cards, I had never had credit, I had no fucking idea how any of this worked. We were getting paid, like, we were their foundation, we were getting paid $20, $30 a week. We lived 45 minutes away from the church. My brothers eventually moved back. We were roommating with them. They moved back to Jacksonville, so me and my husband and my daughter, my oldest daughter, moved in with my uncle. We were living in his living room because we had both signed a 2.5-year contract, and we were aiming to fulfill it. But we ended up only getting like $20-something a piece a week, and we lived 45 minutes away from the church, and to park in the parking garage was like $2.60. I might be wrong, but it was like $2 something. So we were there 7 days a week. Do the fucking math. The math ain't mathing. And never mind the fact that we didn't have a babysitter. And my sister-in-law, after the nannies quit, my ex-sister-in-law was watching my daughter. And I was giving her $200 a week to watch my daughter when I was getting paid. And then I could no longer get paid. And then it was one of those, like, I can't not go. I need you to watch her. And I would do what I can to, like, keep my exchange in. But when I don't have a whole lot of fucking money or time, because never mind the fact that we were on foundation or we were there 7 days a week, we also had to study. And I would have to bring, I think I was writing like 600 letters a week. And I couldn't finish it all during the time that I was supposed to be at the church, so I would bring my work home with me. So it was kind of hard to keep some kind of exchange in with my sister-in-law, so eventually I just started taking my daughter to the church, and I would get in trouble. Me and my husband would take turns with our daughter down in the nursery, and we would get in trouble for not being on post. They would just bitch at us. I was kind of like, what the fuck do you want us to do? We can't just leave our kid at home. So we moved in with my uncle, and I started getting my younger cousin to watch my daughter every day. And that really fucked me up, because I remember being her age and being left to care for my 3 younger brothers. To put it in perspective, I'm 26. My youngest brother just turned 19. My other brother's 20, going to be 21 in August, and my other brother is 21, going to be 22 in August. And I was left alone to care for these kids. So leaving my daughter alone with my cousin fucked me up, because I did not like that, and I felt like I was putting her in the same position that I was in, and I'm my daughter's mother. And I couldn't really pay her. I would like try to buy her like little treats and stuff here and there, but I always felt like a piece of shit. And then meanwhile, I would also get bitched at by people in my family because I'd always leave my daughter with my niece. And I'm like, well, I am on staff. I have to go to staff. Like, what the fuck do you guys want from me? You know? Because you don't want me leaving my daughter with my cousin, but you also don't want me to miss post, but I also can't bring my daughter to post. And this was like a real point of contention. I would go to HCO often and like cry and be like, guys, I need help. And they couldn't offer me any fucking solutions. Their solution was to have me hire some teenager or some little kid to watch my daughter. Okay, one, I don't have money to pay them. Two, I'm not gonna give my kid to some random fucking stranger. I don't know this fucking kid, you know? So it was fucked. So my husband gets a job at Mold Zero in Clearwater, and he's moonlighting. He's still on post, and he's working at Mold Zero, and he had to take the car. He wouldn't, so muster starts at 6:30. Sometimes he wouldn't get back to my uncle's house in Riverview until after 6. I would be ready to go. I would put his clothes in the car, and we would go, and we would drive to post. We wouldn't get there until like after 7 because I lived like 45 minutes away, and we would get bitched at for being late. And my husband would get bitched at for being late and coming in dirty because he wouldn't have time to shower before putting on his uniform. And they told him he needed to decrease his hours at Mold Zero. And my husband told them to get fucked because Mold Zero is what was like keeping us somewhat afloat. We didn't really have bills because we lived with my uncle, but we had minor bills here and there. We were trying to like keep up with the debt and shit. We didn't have food stamps, so we were trying to like make ends meet, and we were trying to also like enjoy life because at the time I was like 21, 22. He was, how old is he? 27, 28. We weren't the best at managing money at the time, I will admit, but we were also young and we were still trying to figure this shit out. And eventually they let him route off staff. I remember the guy that had taken the $60,000 credit out, the course suit that had taken the $60,000 credit line out and put it on our books for the church, we couldn't really pay him. We were trying to. And this is just like the quick ran down version of it all. We couldn't fucking afford $600 a month to pay this dude because my husband was barely bringing in $2,000 by himself at Mold Zero. And every fucking little tiny penny I made at the church was going back into gas and tires and parking garage fees. So we had a meeting with the dude that took the money out and the reg who originally reg does, and I pretty much broke it down to him like, I can't pay this. This cannot happen. I am so sorry, but we cannot pay this money back. Mind you, all the money on the fucking books was not even being used. I was transferring it to other family members' accounts so they could do the fucking bridge. I didn't have time to do the bridge. I did like one fucking life repair because I was losing my goddamn mind and trying to like kill myself. And they're like, you're gonna get you a fucking life repair. And it was like the woman, the auditor, sweet lady, love her to death. I hated it. I hated it so much. I needed actual fucking therapy. You know, I was so stressed and I was envisioning like eating a bullet with my grandpa's GUN in his room. And I went to the ethics officer because this is the HCO is like the only people you can really talk to about this shit. And I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about feeding a bullet to myself. Can you guys please help me? Like, I need genuine help. And it was more so you need to put yourself in a condition. You need to write up all your OWs. I had like a meter check, like an ethics meter check. She was asking me a bunch of questions. A lot of them were pertaining to overts and withholds I committed against the church and all this fucking bullshit. Anyways, so we're in this meeting with the dude who got the line of credit and the registrar, me and my husband, and we told him we can't pay it. And then the reg is like, okay, well, he put us in comm with somebody from Flag who was getting it sorted out and was, long story short, to wrap up that, the guy, I told them, like, hey, we can't pay this. This is the situation. We were doing it when we were getting paid well from the church. Obviously, the church isn't making any money, so we're not making money. We can barely afford to live. So the guy, his name was Sasha from Flag, pretty much wrote us off and said, okay, you guys are good to go. You're debt free. Right? And they said that they were going to handle it and they were going to write the course soup a fucking check. And they never did, because a year after I left the church, the dude was still messaging, this was before I got declared, the dude was still messaging me on Facebook, hey, I really need you to pay this debt. And I'm like, you need to get in touch with Sasha. I gave him his number. I gave him all the phone numbers and emails that they were contacting me from. Said they were going to write you a check. We were told that we were not responsible for this at all. And then eventually he stopped talking to me, and I'm sure that's right after I started talking about Scientology and specifically name dropping Scientology on social media and shiz when he like deleted me and stopped talking to me. So whatever. Anyways, my husband, they let him off staff easy. My husband's working at Mold Zero. He hates it because everybody there, like, pompous assholes, act like they're holier than thou, act like they're fucking better than you. And he eventually goes to Virginia to work with his brother, and he's gone for about 8 weeks. During those 8 weeks, me and him are talking. I'm like, I'm going to get off staff. We're going to move back to Jacksonville. This isn't, like, and mind you, per the policy leaving and leaves, the only people you were allowed to speak to about getting off staff are the members of HCO and the chaplain. But I thought that was bullshit, and I'm like, I'm going to talk to my husband about it. So me and him were talking about it. I told him I'm going to get off staff. We're going to move back to Jacksonville, this, that, and the other. And anytime I brought it up to HCO members and the ethics officer that I was going to leave, they like guilt tripped me. Why would you do that? You need to do what's the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics. And they were basically like gaslighting me, manipulating me. Every time I'd be like, I just kind of want to go be back with my brothers and my family. Well, your brothers are alcoholics and all they do are drink and party. You're just going to go be a part of that out ethics bullshit, in theta bullshit. And that was coming from the ethics officers. I would mention here and there to my uncle, like, when I'm done with my staff contract, because I couldn't tell him I was trying to get off staff, I wanted to move back to Jacksonville. Why? Your brothers are, all they do is party and drink, and they're out ethics, and you're going to go be a part of that. My uncle, it was like my dad to me. And he wasn't, like, now that we don't really have much of a relationship, I'm able to look back a lot on my life and do a lot of reflection and realize that he's not really that fucking nice to me. He wasn't like outwardly mean to me, but just like little things here and there. I'm just kind of like, as an adult, I'm like, fuck, that sucks. Like coming to that realization that like the person you looked up to the most kind of sucks. The nicest he ever was to me was when I was on staff, and he would sit there and I would tell him, like, when I get off staff, I'm going to move back to Jacksonville. And he would sit there with tears in his eyes and tell me how proud he was of me. And that he really wants me to stay and that nobody in the family has made it this long on staff. And would tell me he just, like, my husband's going to fall right into the same bullshit that my brothers do if we moved back. And I knew what I was getting into. And I need to pull up my pants. I need to just do it. And he's just so proud of me that he would have tears in his eyes. And I'm sitting there loving this man with my whole heart. Because he's like my dad. Not wanting to break his heart. So I would tell him, okay, I'll stay. And, you know, looking back on it, I'm like, wow. The proudest he has ever been of me was when I was at my absolute lowest in my life. And I wanted to end my life. And that's a really hard pill to swallow. It really is. And I don't think he understands how low I was because I wasn't talking to him about it because I couldn't. But, yeah. I mean, if we ever talk again, I'll fucking explain it to him now. So eventually I take, like, a short LOA to come visit my mom in Jacksonville, and I'm here for 4 days with my daughter because my husband's in Virginia again. And the 4 days I'm hanging out with my friends and I'm being able to just freely go live my life. And my mom is paying me to like clean her house, so I have like money and I'm able to like, for the first time since I had moved to Tampa, feel like a real person. The day it was time to go, I was saying my little brother, while we were in Tampa, he had a baby with his son's mother, and they moved back to Jacksonville too, and they were living at my mom's, and it was time for me and my daughter to go back to Tampa. Because my mom drove from Jacksonville to Tampa every week to do her SRD with her. My grandpa was her twin. And it was time to drive back because she had course that night and I had post. I was due back at post. And I was saying goodbye to my nephew. My little baby nephew that I was so afraid was not going to know me because of how far away I was. And I missed my niece and my other nephew from my older brother terribly. And I fucking broke down. And my mom brought me to her room and I told her everything. I told her how badly I wanted to leave staff. I told her all about the money bullshit. I told her how depressed I was. I told her how overworked I was because they expected so much out of me. And I told her everything, as she said. And I told her that now I could get declared for telling her. And she said, no, we'll go talk to them and it'll be okay. You're going to come back with me on Saturday. This was a Thursday. She said on Sunday when I come back, you and Madeline will just come back with me. And then you can go back with me every week to route off properly, but you're just going to take an LOA and you're going to work on your routing form. You're going to come back with me because I don't like seeing you this way. So we go back and I work Thursday through Sunday, and Sunday morning when I get to post, I go to HCO and I tell one of the HCO members, hey, I'm going to move back to Jacksonville this week and I will come back every week to do my route off form. And they said, okay. And then the ethics officer got a hold of me and she said, brought me in the little ethics room. And the way the ethics room was set up is that the ethics officer's chair was closest to the door and yours was farthest away from the door. And I'm sitting in front of her and I'm telling her, dude, I hate my life. I want to go home. Jacksonville's home. I miss my husband. He's in Virginia working right now. I want to see him more. And she's just sitting there you're telling me how out ethics my family is, telling me how this is so messed up and I'm letting down, how I'm letting everybody, how I'm letting the team down, how me moving back to Jacksonville is going to make me see my husband more, even though my husband did not want to fucking live in Clearwater and he had jobs waiting for him in Jacksonville because we lived there for so long. And she just basically invalidated everything I was saying, gaslit me, manipulated me. And I stood up and I was like, no, I'm just going to go. And she stood up and she was had her hand on the door and she's like, I'm not going to. And I told her, I was like, I'm riding home with my mom. I'm going to be at my mom's house. I will ride back with her every week and I will route off correctly, but I'm going to leave. And she said, okay, that's fine. I'll just talk to your mom. And I looked at her, I said, Miranda, that's my mom. She's not going to listen to you. If I want to go, she will let me go. And she was like, well, I'm just not going to let you go. And she was in front of the door and had her hand on the door. And everything in my body was like, man, if this bitch don't get the fuck out the way if I try to move, I'm going to fuck her up. And that every inch of my body was ready to go, bro. If you know what I mean, I was ready to fucking go. And I told her, I'm going to leave if I want to leave. And she said, just let me talk to your mom. And she went out. And she talked to my mom, and my mom and me talked, and they basically convinced me that to stay for 2 more months. This was in October, stay for 2 more months, and they will fast track my routing off form, and I will be good to go. I will be fine. So at this point, my husband's still in Virginia. I'm now having to go to the org every day to do a sec check on top of being on post every fucking night. So I'd wake up at 9 in the morning, I'd be at the church by 11, or the org by 11, and I'd be doing the sec check with this, so only certain auditors are qualified to do sec checks, and the dude who was qualified to do my sec check, I got fucking, weird fucking vibes from him, bro, and during the sec check, and this is what I mean, I'm not gonna, accuse anybody, but during the sec check, he kept redirecting the questions to sexual promiscuity during my teenage years, and then, asking me about instances of, threesomes and shit that I had when I was a fucking teenager, and I would tell him, I'm not comfortable talking about this, and he's like, we need to get off all the overts and withholds, and I would just start, kind of lying and, trying to steer the conversation away, and he would ask me questions, and I would say, well, I don't agree, and then he would show me a policy, and he'd be like, do you understand? I'm like, yeah, I understand. And he's like, do you agree? And I said, no, I don't agree. And he's like, well, for the sake of this session, can you agree with what Ron's saying? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. And then I'd be on the fucking cans, and he'd ask me all these, questions. And at this point, I knew how to get my needle to flow was to completely relax my body and focus my attention on something where I would, look like I'm looking at him, but I'd be focusing all of my attention on the damn sign behind his head, and he'd be like, oh, your needle's floating, ha ha ha, you're so fucking cool. Oh, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I hate auditing. I hate the fucking cans. I hate Dianetic auditing. I hate auditing. I hate it so fucking much. I need a goddamn therapy. I don't fucking need auditing. Holy shit, it is such a crack of shit. I so easily could fake an in phenomenon at the end of a goddamn session just to be able to get the fuck out of this chair, because I'd be in this goddamn room with fat ass windows with no fucking curtains, with the sun beating on me the whole time, with fucking heaters on my feet, holding these fucking cans, and I'd be in there for 6 fucking hours, bro. God damn. God, what the fuck is wrong with these people, dude? Jesus Christ. And you know what's even more fucked up is during this, I'm like, I still loved Scientology. I still loved Ron. I was like, these people just must not be doing something right. Because if they were doing everything the way Ron said things should be done, it wouldn't feel so fucked up. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing the sec check. I don't want to do the fucking sec check anymore. My husband comes home from Virginia around Thanksgiving. My anxiety, depression, stress, anger, all of that is to the goddamn max. I am being a raging cunt to everyone around me at this point because I can't fucking talk about the shit that I'm going through. I can't just fucking leave because if I leave, that's a blow, which is an unauthorized departure, and then my family's gonna fucking disconnect from me. Hopefully my mom won't, but my mom might. And I'm picking fucking fights with my younger cousin, who I've always been close with my whole life. She's still in Scientology. We don't fucking talk anymore. But I'm picking fucking fights with her. We get in a fucking fight a few days after Thanksgiving. Like, we put hands on each other, bro. It's never been like that. I'm picking fights with my fucking her brother, my aunt, my uncle. I'm such a fucking bitch. I can't even believe the person I was at that time. And one day, it's time for me to leave the house to go to the fucking church, and I couldn't do it any fucking more. I could not bear to sit through one more stupid fucking muster. I couldn't bear to sit through one more stupid fucking staff meeting where we're all standing up and hip hip hooray, the fucking Chinese scrolls where you thought of one book, think of 100, go big thing. Like, what the fuck is that chanting like it's a fucking cult, bro? And my husband and my kid are asleep on the couch, and I kick my husband awake. I'm like, get your shit. We're going back to Jacksonville. Help me get all of our stuff. We load up my fucking car. My uncle's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going back to Jacksonville, unks. It's fine. I've talked to everybody. It's all cool. And he's sitting there. He knows I'm fucking full of shit. But I'm like, we're just going to go. We tell everybody bye. I get on the fucking road. I don't drive on the interstate. This time I had so much anxiety from driving, but I was so fucking ready to get out of there. I got in that bitch, and I just fucking whipped it, and we went. Went back to Jacksonville. I called my brother. I'm like, dude, we're leaving. I'm on my way to your house. I'll be there after midnight. Are you sure? Yeah, dude, I'm sure. Is everything good? It'll be fine. All right, I'll see you when you get here. I call my mother. My mother, are you sure? I'm sure. Does Miranda know, the ethics officer? She knows. It'll be fine. It'll get worked out. I'm going to come back and finish my routing form. All right, let me know when you get to your brother's. Cool. Get to my brother's. Fine. The ethics officer calls me a couple times on the way there. Get to my brother's. Sleep on a fucking air mattress. His living room is the best sleep I have had in fucking years, might I add. And also considering the fact that I was sleeping on like a couch and a floor at my uncle's house for the past 6 months. 6 or so months. Like, and bear with me because the timeline of all of this is super fucking wonky because I was so like there's probably so many things that I've accidentally omitted. There's so many things I'm probably not saying verbatim because my mind was shot, dude. I don't even what the fuck? Eventually after getting there, the chaplain, the ethics officer all start harassing my mom and brother, harassing me, saying they need to get me back, I need to finish my cycles, blah blah blah. I won't go. They're threatening to come to my fucking brother's house. The audio is gonna be a little fucked from this point out. I'm gonna plug up my phone. My brother tells him, you come to my house, I'm calling the fucking cops. I find out I'm pregnant. My mom, after one time, I'm home alone at my brother's house with my daughter, and I hear knock banging at the fucking door, and I put my daughter in the room, and I grab a fucking knife from the kitchen. They didn't have a peephole. I opened that door ready to lose my shit, because I thought it was somebody from the church, because they were saying they were finna come to this bitch to talk to me, and to try to get me to come back. Open the door to my fucking mother, and my sister-in-law, my little brother, and I have a mental fucking, not a mental breakdown, I break the fuck down, I tell them, I'm so fucking worried they won't leave me alone. My mom gets on the phone with the chaplain and it's she is pregnant. You need to leave her the fuck alone. You guys are gonna make this, you're causing too much stress, right? This is in December. So I'm pregnant. February 1st, I find out I'm at work. What I think is miscarrying. So I go to the hospital. Turns out I am miscarrying, but I have a really rare pregnancy called a molar pregnancy, a complete molar. Look it up. Don't want to explain it. It's really hurtful for me. And my mom's at the hospital with me, and I'm begging her, because I still talk to my Scientology. I'm not declared yet, and I'm not outwardly speaking up against Scientology. And I I'm like, don't tell Uncle, don't tell Jen, because they're all gonna think I fucking did this. They're gonna think I killed my fucking baby. They're gonna think I pulled this in, even though it's a super, super rare thing that happens. And that was my mindset. And on the way to Jacksonville from Tampa, because Scientology has you so convinced that any time you go against Scientology, you're bringing in, like your PTS, you're bringing in bad things. So the whole way to Jacksonville from Tampa, I'm like, my car's gonna fucking break down. I'm gonna get a car wreck. I'm gonna kill my whole family in this fucking car. I'm like, something bad is going to happen. But then I get to Jacksonville and I'm fine. I'm like, nothing bad happened. So I just kept waiting for the bad thing to happen. And then this molar pregnancy happened. I'm like, there's the fucking bad thing that happened. And it's just fucked. Is this right? My phone is running out of storage, so I'm just gonna finish this because, like I said, I've done this 4 fucking times. I've deleted it. I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. I want to get this out here. I'm fucking done. Anyways, by the time I get back, like literally the first week, I start watching Leah Remini and the Scientology in the Aftermath, growing up in Scientology, and any weird feeling or any doubt I had about Scientology was confirmed within a few days of Googling it. Because mind you, I was not supervised as a kid. I grew up online. Like, the internet fucking raised me. And I was such a diehard Scientologist my whole life that anytime I would see anything about Scientology during all of my unsupervised online activity, I would just delete it. I wouldn't look at it. I never looked for myself because I was convinced that anything about Scientology was all lies made up because they hate Scientology, because Scientology's taking down the psychs. And saving the planet, and the bad people don't want that to happen. Typical Scientology bullshit. So everything gets instantly validated, and at first I started talking to my brothers a little bit about it, and they were like, yeah, we started looking into it ourselves. We stay quiet. Me and my older brother kind of like dropped the news to my mother. My mom was like, holy fuck. Oh, never mind the fact that after I left my grandpa, my uncle drive to Jacksonville and told my mom, let's go to breakfast. And she's like, we're going to breakfast, right? Because she had quit going to the church too, because she couldn't afford to keep driving there anymore. So they're like, yeah, we're just gonna go to breakfast. And they get her in the car. They start driving straight to Tampa. And this lady called my brother from the best shop bathroom, whispering, my keys are on my counter. If I call you to come get me, you need to come get me. They drive my mom to the Tampa org. My mom sits down in the ethics room with the ethics officer Miranda, and basically gets fucking grilled for 2.5 hours about all of her overts and withholds, and accused of like aiding me and leaving and blowing from staff. And my mom's like, I didn't help her with shit. She told me she was on her way. She's a free person. I'm gonna let her do what she does. That's my kid. I love her. They told her that she needed to disconnect from me until I come back and finish my routing off cycle and handle my cycles, or she can no longer do her SRD. So my mom told her, get fucked. Guess I'm not doing my SRD anymore. Peace. Left, hasn't been back to the fucking church since, isn't declared. But yeah, I would like here and there, I would like share posts on Facebook. I wouldn't say Scientology, but I'd be like, this was like, I was at the lowest point of my fucking life, want to kill myself, meh. And I eventually, in 2021 in August, I wanted to see my grandpa, because I had gotten pregnant again after the molar pregnancy, and I had a baby, and I wanted my grandpa to meet my baby. So my aunt told me she'd come get me and bring me back, but I had to go do my comm ev at the church because the fucking chaplain had been harassing me for like a year about coming to do this comm ev, and I told her to get fucked, I'm not doing it. But it was the way I could see my grandpa, so I agreed to go. And I go to this comm ev, and it's one of the ethics officers, several auditors that are obviously like a committee of evidence, whatever. Sorry. Phone's really running out of storage. So anyways, in this committee of evidence, they're bringing up screenshots of like text messages between me and others. I'm assuming it's my fucking family members that are still in Scientology were taking screenshots of posts I was making on Facebook, like funny fucking memes about church in general, not Scientology. And I just had this fat ass folder full of all of this evidence. And they asked me, have you watched Going Clear? Have you watched Leah Remini, Scientology in the Aftermath? Have you watched Growing Up in Scientology on YouTube? Like all these questions. I'm like, yeah. Do you want to get back in good standing with Scientology? No, I'm not a Scientologist. I have no interest in doing this anymore. I just came here to see my grandpa, and this was one of the conditions for being able to see my grandpa. And I was like, I'm not trying to make like a fucking movie night of it. She's, have you talked to your siblings or your mom about what you've looked up about Scientology? Yeah, I have. And I told him I'm not trying to make like a movie night out of it. I'm not trying to like lose my uncle and shit. We've talked about it, but we don't like, we're not trying to get it to a point where our family has to disconnect from us. And they're like, okay. And they left and they didn't say anything. And shortly after that, God, like maybe a couple months, this was in August, by December of 2021, even though I had not been declared and I hadn't like specifically really said Scientology on any of my posts or anything on Facebook, Snapchat, any of that. Well, maybe Snapchat, because I don't really have people on Snapchat. My family started acting real funny towards me, my Scientologist family, and they quit talking to me. They quit interacting with me on social media, but still talked to all my brothers and interacted with them. They quit calling me. They quit calling my kid, my oldest daughter. They just started acting real funny, and they told my brother it was because me and my husband smoked pot. And that was the thing. Then they're fucking crackheads. They're bad parents. And like when their kids and them would come to visit, their kids weren't allowed to stay at my house because me and my husband smoke weed and we're drug addicts. But they were completely fine with them staying at my older brother. Love my older brother. No fucking hate. They're fucking party animals. They be drinking, bro. But they were unsafe at my house. But it's funny because growing up, anytime you needed a babysitter, they're completely safe around me. And if I'm such a bad parent, why don't you call CPS and get my kids taken away? Because you can't, because I'm an amazing mom and I'm a better parent than either one of you could ever dream of being. But they kept saying that they just were talking shit about us and making us out to be horrible people. So I had no relationship with them. And I've always wanted to speak out against it. And the only reason I didn't speak out against it is because I didn't want to lose my aunt and uncle and my cousin, dude. So in April of 2022, I posted on Reddit. I was born and raised in Scientology, ask me anything. I answered the questions on film and I made a YouTube video out of it because I'm like, what do I have to lose? They already hate me. They already want nothing to do with me. I've only been quiet to maintain a relationship with them. They've already got it decided in their heads that we are horrible people, that me and my husband suck. Nothing to lose. So I did it. And then they really like now in family functions when they come around, which I'm supposedly declared according to them, but my aunts still be loving on me during family functions. They still come around to my brothers who are still very much attached to me and my husband and my mother. They still interact with my mother. It's just me. Like my aunt will still interact with me. My uncle, like at my brother's wedding, he told me to go hand something to our uncle. And I was like, hey, uncle, here you go. And he literally like side-eyed. He wouldn't even fucking like acknowledge my existence. I was like, all right, fucker. And I threw it at his feet. Never mind the fact one time we were at a fucking party at my brother's house and my uncle was plastered drunk, but I'm a bad person because I snuck weed. But this man was so drunk that he looked at my husband and he ran up on my husband, didn't run up, but he went up to my husband and shoulder checked the hell out of him while looking into my eyes. And I'm like, wow, that's not very good Scientologist of you. Now, I might cut that part out. I don't know. That was a little spicy. Anyways, so according to them, after I uploaded my Scientology Ask Me Anything, I'm officially declared a suppressive person in Scientology. They quit fucking calling me. They quit fucking writing me letters. Quit writing my husband letters too, because y'all send them to our old addresses that we had when we first moved back. I just his name is Peter Forsyth. And he's absolutely on my side. Like he shares all my videos. He hypes me up. Quit writing him letters. Quit emailing him. He's not into it. Osa, if you hear the Peter Forsyth, that is my husband. Quit writing to him. He's not into it. He wasn't even, the only reason he got into it was for me. That's all I really have to say, I guess. If you guys have any questions, comment it. I'm gonna edit this one and I'm gonna upload this because I want to talk about it and I want to get my fucking story out there. And talking about it after a lifetime of not being able to be myself and having to water myself down and mind my P's and Q's, I feel it was really good to be able to say whatever the fuck I want and express myself however the fuck I want. My family members, if you watch this, love you to death. I will be here when you need me. Any friends I made in Scientology watching this that are still in Scientology and have deleted me from their lives, again, I love you to death. I will be here if you need me. That's it. That's all I really have to say. If you sat through this, thank you. Bye.